Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to make a quick video about my favorite lures to use during the pre-spawn and the spawn. This might be a short video, this might be a long video, I'm not sure, I haven't planned it out. So, with that being said, I'm going to apologize in advance. It is a little windy today, and I don't want to use my garbage microphone, so I'm going to go right off the camera audio, so if it doesn't come through all that well, I apologize in advance. So with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so the first bait I'm going to start throwing at the beginning of the year is going to be a lipless crankbait. When the water hits about the 50 to 60 degree range, those males are going to pull up shallow and get ready to spawn. So this is going to be my first go-to for the year. That's when they start getting really aggressive. They start feeding before the spawn, and I've noticed that they hit on these quite a lot. If you watch one of my first videos, it's pre-spawn fluke fishing, I think it is. It's like an 8-minute long video. All my catches were, or most anyways, were males that were up in the riprap, and that was just as the water hit about that 50 to 60 degree range. That's when all the males pull up and they start getting super aggressive. So the lipless crankbait is going to be my first go-to for the year. I do not work the bait consistently. What I mean by that is I'm not just going to steadily reel it in. I'm going to, cast it out, let it drop a ways, flick it a few times, reel it in, flick it. I'm not consistent. I like the fish like that diversity. They don't like the steadiness of it. Alright, so my second favorite bait is going to be the craw. I like Texas rigging these on about a ½ ounce weight, usually quarter to ½ ounce weight, and I like throwing these up in the riprap. At this lake in particular, bass really love riprap. I don't know why. I think it's just a spotted bass thing. This lake is full of spotted bass, and I usually have a lot of success finding them in the riprap, and of course craws like to live in rocks and stuff like that, so this is my ultimate go-to. I usually like a pumpkin color about like this. I like the black with also the orange tips on the ends. I find the bass really like those. And there's a third color. What was the third color? Watermelon. You can never go wrong with watermelon. So this is one of my go-to baits as well. Then of course you gotta go with the trick worm and the fluke. I swear by the fluke, man. I found out this last year that the bass just absolutely love this. I had never tried it until last year. I intend to use it a lot this year. Trick worm as well. These are my two ultimate favorites, especially during the pre-spawn when the fish are aggressive and will eat fairly almost anything, it seems like. You can watch, I got two or three different fluke videos. I got one on trick worms too. These work really well during the pre-spawn, up shallow. I was throwing these in riprap last year. Both of them I like to throw completely weightless, and it works well for me. Alright, when the spawn hits and those fish are up on the beds, my number one go-to bait is going to be a jig. You can never go wrong with a jig. They can imitate just about anything. When you're fishing the spawn and you see those fish on the beds, you'll notice that they're not going to be paying attention to your baits. So you have to fit. There's usually one spot on the bed that you can hit, and those fish will strike it, and they will be aggressive when they do so. A jig, it covers, a fairly decent amount of ground, and you can finesse it very well. Finesse is key during the spawn. You need to move it slow. Their beds are not that large, so you need to move it very slowly across that bed. So a jig is going to be my number one go-to when it comes to the spawn. Alright, my number two go-to bait during the spawn is going to be a lizard. If a bass sees a lizard on the bed, they're going to feel threatened by it, and I've had a lot of good strikes on this. Jig, of course, comes number one, but the lizard is a very close second. Depending on where you live, it'll work more than others. The south has a lot more lizards and creatures and stuff like that than the north does. I'm from Michigan. These don't work as well up north as they do down south. Last year I did fairly well on these. I'll still pick a jig over this just about any day. Carolina rigged, they're deadly. Alright, and my final go-to bait during the spawn is once again going to be the lipless crankbait. Usually I like the colors to be shad, sunfish, bluegill, whatever your lake has. Those are my go-tos. These fish will, bluegills in particular, will sometimes invade the bass's bed, and when they feel threatened they'll chase them off. But if you hit the bed just right, they'll attack it to the point where they'll eat it because they feel threatened by it and they just want it gone. So the lipless crankbait is going to be my go-to, and the reason I go lipless is because I can set it down on that bed. If I had a square bill on, it would just float right back to the top. But with a lipless, it'll go straight to the bottom. And when these fish are spawning, they're spawning in about 3 feet or less, so you don't have to worry about your lure getting hung up or anything like that. At least on this lake, I found that fish like to have about 50% gravel and about 50% sand, roughly. It all depends on where you live though, but this is going to be my number 3 go-to right here.